Welcome to Julia and Rosie's Night Out. This video was developed for the Southeast ADA Center by its North Carolina affiliate, the CARES program at the UNC Chapel Hill School of Social Work. Meet Julia. Julia uses a wheelchair and drives an accessible van to get around town. Tonight, Julia and her friend Rosie are going out to dinner and then to a concert. Julia uses a reserved van-accessible parking space located near the ramp where she comes in and out of her apartment building. It's marked by a van-accessible sign. The space is wider than a typical parking space and has an access aisle, which gives Julia enough room to lower her van's ramp and enter the vehicle. ADA rules about accessible parking apply to parking provided by state or local government agencies, public accommodations, and commercial facilities for employees, visitors, or clients. Accessible parking in private residential settings like Julia's apartment is not covered by the ADA, but is usually covered by the Fair Housing Act. Accessible parking spaces must be marked by signs with the international symbol of accessibility. Van spaces must include the phrase, quote, "van accessible," unquote, and include an access aisle. When Julia and Rosie arrive at the restaurant, they discovered that, although there is an accessible parallel parking space in front of the restaurant, there are several large garbage bags and discarded boxes piled up on the sidewalk and falling into the parking space. Under the ADA, accessible surfaces must be kept in good repair and clean of snow, ice, or other debris. You can report problems to your city if it's a public lot, or to the business if it's a private parking lot. So Julia and Rosie go down the street to a nearby parking garage. On the first floor, they find several van-accessible spaces grouped together. The ADA has standards for the number of accessible parking spaces parking facilities must provide. It also sets the standards for the required dimensions of accessible spaces and their adjacent aisles. Van-accessible spaces need to be larger than standard accessible spaces. Julia parks, and she and Rosie exit the garage using a ramp which leads to the sidewalk. Julia and Rosie enjoyed their dinner. Now it's time to drive over to the concert venue. Even though she paid for basic parking, the attendant points them toward the VIP parking lot. Since the basic parking lot does not have a paved pathway to the venue, all accessible parking spaces for the concert are in the VIP lot. Accessible spaces must be located and connected to the shortest accessible route to the entrance of the facility served. It's important to remember that accessible parking isn't about convenience. It's about equal access and independence. If you want to learn more about accessible parking and the ADA, visit www.adata.org/factsheet/parking. By understanding and respecting the rights of individuals with disabilities and the importance of accessible parking, we can create safer and more welcoming communities for everyone. Thank you.